Okay, so I've put out like 20 minutes of video in as many hours, and I have like 12 more hours. And I'm gonna try to do a third one. It's gonna be fine.
The religion itself is the antagonist of this story.
Okay, just kidding. I got some sleep. I know that I said I would continue to talk about how Trench was around in the blurryface era, but we only have so much time before the new era starts. I just have some ideas that I want to share. There's some shit on my mind. This is the video I've been waiting to make. I don't know if this is the best way to start, but let's just go. So I think blurryface isn't quite real. I think it's more like black and white dressed up as red. I just don't think these are blurryface. Not exactly. Now, bear with me. Let's watch this for a minute. Now, if you didn't happen to catch right off the bat that his armband switches sides no less than 6 times, allow me to at least entertain you with the idea that this band is doing something right in front of us that we may not notice immediately. When Brandon Reich, who is a creative director and merch designer, was writing behind Blurryface, he wrote, "We soon realized that the band's previously used blue color had no place in this new narrative." Talking to Altpress in 2015, Tyler had said, "The more I got to know the character Blurryface, the more I realized the color blue was not a part of who he was. And because of that, red represents him on this record." But red and blue were characters before Blurryface was. They were two halves of a whole, like interdependent. Does that make sense? See how the blue is part of the red and the red is part of the blue? Like, I don't know if you could get more literal about saying these are two interdependent halves of one whole. Well, I guess you could. You could make either of these shirts. Like, come on. This is super clear. That was known as the hidden tee. You had to find it on their website, but this is part of the Heathens visuals. It's like they're two aspects of one psyche. Cool? Cool. So we start off with Tyler, red, right, Josh, left, blue, then we switch off to Tyler, left, blue, Josh, red, right. And that's how it stays for the duration of the time that they wear these colors. Okay, so we have that down. Red, blue, right, left, two halves of a whole. Let's set this aside just for a moment. Black and white was also an aspect of these early days. I'm taking over my body. I'm sure that you've noticed that this video is the 3rd time that I've used this logo in the intro. And that is because I believe the circle represents the city and always has.
So we have the bar logo, which we've made sure that we got a circle around it most of the time now, so we've really introduced the circle in it.
I think this circle gives context to where red and blue exists, in the same way that holding on to you gives context to the world in which we exist. And that world is black and white, in not a good way.
The concept behind the video of holding on to you is leaning more towards the dark side of things, like the friction between what it is we think life should be and what life actually is.
And that's it. That is the most he has ever explained about holding on to you. In October 2018, Tyler would tell Rock Sound that the story of Trench and Dima was one he always intended to tell, though not necessarily involving music and not necessarily involving Blurryface. And I think that's the reason we never heard about Holding On To You in any detail. It's because an artery of that story lives in Holding On To You. We know what this song is about. Flesh out the door, SWAT. You think twice about your life, fight it. Now I'm sure he didn't call it vialism at the time, but in principle, What is more vialism than looking back and finding it's the rest of the world pulling on the rope? Speaking of which, visually, there's a lot of not explicitly acknowledged, unarticulated theys in Holding On To You. These entities, forces, whatever, that become the thing pulling on that rope. And we find that in Blurryface as well, and we'll discuss that in a minute. With Holding On To You as a representation of the world we live in, and kind of like what's wrong with it.
There's something wrong. There's like, something is broken in this. The way that we live is proof that there's an element there that's just not right. There's something not right.
All the way through Nico and the Niners, we have this continuity of black and white from the beginning of Vessel until now. We can be pretty sure that in Blurryface, he's in Dima. I'm fairly local. I've seen this creature walking down. Where we're from, there's no sun. Gnawing on the bishops, claw our way up their system. Hope you haven't left without me. Like, it's subtext. We're not supposed to be able to figure it out. Like, how could we? But we can look back on it gainfully. Okay, switching back. In October of 2019, Tyler was asked to sum up each record in one word. This is what he chose.
Vessel would be gray. Blurryface would be red, and Trench would be yellow.
And Vessel is gray. I don't know why I had this idea of it being blue. And if you look inside, it pictures the circle, looking at the world through shades, just a snap of everyday life, like the mundane, and sleeping. Pretty much exactly what you would expect from life in Grayscale. But interestingly, this imagery also includes the logo in Grayscale. You can't tell the red and blue apart. And I wonder if that isn't part of the problem. And if this is getting a little obscure for you, just hang in there, I'll bring it back around. Just hang out through this part. So Brandon Ragg described Blurryface, and so ultimately this would be coming from Tyler. It's safe to say he remains something that we try to hide and not show the outside world. And before Blurryface as a character was realized, we saw this happen with Red. Just be blue, man. At some point we'll talk about the use of a second language here and how 21 Pilots uses that as a way to signal that there is another way to read this. They use it on merch and stuff. It's really cool. I'm at 8 minutes, for fuck's sake. But yeah, we literally just saw blue try to hide red from the outside world. And then there's this. On a podcast, Brandon Ragg would recall Tyler describing Blurryface as a part of yourself you kind of want to kill, and Blurryface is red, and clearly that is what's happening here. He's trying to kill him. They're both wearing white masks. Is Blue not able to distinguish Red from himself because they both have white masks? Is that why Vessel is gray, because Blue and Red are indistinguishable?
Blurryface is a character. I wanted to create this guy who had a name, a face, a seat at the table that could look across and really address them.
It seems like creating the character of Blurryface was intended to isolate those things, to address them. But Blurryface contains more than just red. Even though Tyler says, well, blue wasn't relevant here, so he's red. Let's talk about something that doesn't add up here.
I wanted to create this guy.
One guy, and yet, heavy dirty soul, smoke them out. Stressed out, they're laughing at our face. Lane boy, they say stay in your lane boy. Fairly local, they say I'm emotional. Message man, they rip it flip it. There's those unacknowledged theys again. If you're not sure about this, the visuals for Message Man are a black and white, many-limbed thing. Blurryface isn't just one thing. Now I know we know that, but I think there's more to it than there immediately seems. Once again, quoting Brandon Ragg about the creation of Blurryface, he says, Blurryface isn't that black and white. The story is black and white, but with red. Like maybe there's something behind the red. Hey! What was I saying? Not that. This. Rex said, the story is black and white, but with red. He can be represented as sad, angry, evil, or deceptive.
When the leader of the bad guys sang something soft and soaked in pain, I heard the echo from his secret hideaway.
But I don't know, man. Does that sound evil to you? If anything, this guy looks like he's suffering. Is he deceptive, or is he a deception? I digress. We've got two major things left. The other unacknowledged thing on Blurryface, the record. Heavy Dirty Soul. Gangsters don't cry. Also Heavy Dirty Soul. You only live once. Stressed out. Wake up, you need to make money. Ride. I'd die for you. As like the height of expressing that you care for someone. Tearing my heart. Sometimes you gotta bleed to know that you're alive. We don't believe what's on TV. What we want, we know we can't believe. We have all learned to kill our dreams. All of these things, one, are external, and are like cultural maxims, which is really weird, or at least counterintuitive, for an album that's about your personal insecurities. All of these things are negative cultural messaging, and it's really strange not to mention that. Like, in 3 years, you never bring up that this is stuff that we are taught. I mean, it's not like it's hidden. Within the album, it's very straightforward. Gangsters don't cry, therefore. As a result, this is a direct response. If this is your culture, this is my counterculture. And he's inviting us to be a part of it. One time to think, and I say we start now. So this is not Tyler Joseph's personal insecurities, a memoir. So let's talk about why I think Blurryface is red mixed with white and black. The emotional part of your brain mixed with culture that at worst is something red gets the blame for. Is red exploited? And I should preface this by saying, I don't think we're supposed to be able to tell that there are two different characters here. That's like the whole bit. And your own confusion is how it gets you. Okay, Heavy Dirty Soul. Tyler is in this car that is marked with red. He's in a vessel he is sharing with red. It's being driven, it's all over the road. We don't need to see a driver. We already know the car is being driven, and yet one shows up. You don't have two symbols for the same thing. That would be messy, redundant storytelling. The only reason to have someone show up is if the thing driving the car is not what we think it is. Now, if you're looking at this going, hey, the guy's in all black and there's this snow, I think that's a fairly local reference, I would agree. First verse, a fairly local, where he's going, I'm evil to the core. We know he's wearing a red hat, but you will not find a red pixel on screen. For these moments, he's black and white. This character is cocky and pleased with his blackened hands. Red is just trying to get that hand off his neck. And we know in this moment that's red, because his eyes are red, not just a hat. Josh shares the role of Red here, and he's really taking a beating the rest of the song. They never got to film this because they ran out of time, but there was a scene written in where Josh is all busted up, and I'm pretty sure he bites it at the end. An important thing that happens here, black and white does not have its own voice. It speaks back to you in your own distorted voice, or through other people, or in Clancy's case, his own fucked up memory. Like, remember how Tyler's voice made no sound here? So even though Tyler has his second rebuttal verse, I'm not evil to the core, he doesn't win. This distortion is internalized. He says back in his own distorted voice,
Yo, this song will never be on the radio. Even if my clique would have picked and the people would have vote, it's a few the proud and the emotional. Yo.
and so on. It is 8 o'clock on March 30th, and if I don't finish this video, I may literally die. Okay, so Tearing My Heart also has that second language signifier that says there is another way you can read this. Jenna certainly adds to the suggestion of something more in her commentary to Alt Press December 2015. Tyler doesn't write love songs, but there's definitely a lot more going on in the song than just liking a girl. So based on our premise here that the thing behind Blurryface is learned behaviors, toxic cultural messaging, what poisonous message, what cultural learned thing could Tearing My Heart be saying? Just a possible message that it carries.
Sometimes you gotta bleed to know that you're alive and have a soul.
Bingo. Like, that's actually not great, right? Do you have to bleed to know you're alive? Do you have to suffer to know you have a soul? Is that the price of entry to knowing you exist? Let's watch what happens. Tyler approaches. We specifically get a shot showing us clearly that Jenna's famously blue eyes are gray. Tyler's are his normal brown. And just to get this out of the way right now, if you don't have room for the possibility that this is important. I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn.
Bit of a cool handshake.
That song is called Iris, by the way, by the Goo Goo Dolls, which is the colored part of the eye. Where were we? Tyler approaches, and remember, the visuals match what's going on in the video here. So Tyler is matched with Red on screen, and at first Jenna is too. She says to him, in his own voice,
"Sometimes you gotta bleed to know, that you're alive and have a soul,
He didn't love that. So Tyler challenges this.
But it takes someone to come around to show you how."
So a couple things just happened here. First, Tyler has identified this as a thought he doesn't 100% agree with. Pain for the sake of itself is not useful, or at least not good. If you're going to use pain, it has to be in a specific way. Pain that you grow from, and it takes somebody to show you how to do that. Jenna is shocked. She casts off her yellow jacket and is revealed to be black and white both in screens and on the scene. And then she just fucking clocks him. I don't really get how it ends. I understand that there's both a good and a bad outcome or interpretation. Like, on the one hand, the distortions that he sees go away, but on the other, his hands are still shaking. And like, distressingly, Tyler is a very good actor, and I don't care who you are, this is not romance. This is more like a trauma bond. This interaction between black and white and red is more like ownership, more like possession. Stressed out, this one's really easy.
Used to dream of outer space, but now they're laughing at the face, saying, "Wake up, you need to make money."
This time they got the fam to dress up in black, white, and gray to be that voice, this external thing, voicing that, hey, you need to make money. This is what we believe as a culture. Priority number one. There's a couple more things I'd like to touch on really quick. Holding on to you, we have this change in perspective, this kind of east is up shift. And it's the moment when Tyler turns, when he looks at them, when he identifies them. If you look in the visuals, we have this moment where there's this black, white, and red eye that recedes. It's this thing looking back at you. When you identify it, is when you start to win. Laneboy is characterized as breaking character, and there is no compensation in this song. Tyler knows exactly where his reaction is, and he's not apologizing. There's no deep voice. There's no insecurity. Fame and success kneel to him in the end. He knows who they are. He knows who these theys are speaking. And I hope this is what happens with our blurry, distorted, grayscale, mysterious Bourbaki in the middle there. With some application of yellow, of choice, of recognition, of rejection, he's recognized and overcome. Ride does have compensation. We know I'd die for you is bad, so he tries, I'd live for you. But he says, I know that's not true either. He settles on, I'm thinking too much. The compensation for making much of it is being reductive in turn. But watch the way this works. The left side starts in falsetto, eyes closed. The right says, help me, but then joins the left.
Thinking too much. Help me. I've been thinking too much. I've been thinking too much.
Shit, I gotta stop. I want to talk about My Blood and how that's sung in falsetto as well. And how at the very last moment the black and white hallway is flung away and all that's left is red and blue. And how the deep voice is present in like 10 songs out of Trench as compared to like 3 in Blurryface. And it's clearly not Blurryface in Trench. This whole story is about location, lenses, perspective, distortion. To me, anyway. I don't know to what extent it's really possible to leave the city. Like in the Legend visuals, the city is presented at a right angle to a solar system, suggesting that maybe that's just Earth, maybe that's just life. We know from Clancy, though, that things weren't always violous. The bishops instituted vialism. What's up with the blue static, though? Like, for 10 years. And where did Blue go? Or is he still here? And what is Psy? Maybe we'll find out tomorrow. I'm so tired. Bye, guys.